Bless FM radio, play good tune.
Looks like the sun, it doesn't shine for me, because I'm living yet I can't be free. But freedom is a must, I know, no matter how the fuss and go on, because I read these things in prophecy. It says when the rain starts pouring down and there ain't got no water, they're gonna bow down to the ground, wishing that they were under. And when the stars start falling down and the fire is burning, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, everyone will be mourning. Looks like the moon, it doesn't shine for me at night. Why they've got to be so much evildoers in my sight. But no matter how they fuss and go, freedom is a must, I know, because I read these things in prophecy. Oh, yeah. I say I read these things. Looks like the sun, it doesn't shine for me, because I'm living yet I can't be free. But freedom is a must, I know, no matter how the fuss and go on, because I read these things in prophecy. It says when the rain stop pouring down and they don't have no water, they're gonna bow down to the ground, wishing that they were under. And when the stars start falling down and the fire is burning, there will be weeping and the gnashing of teeth, everyone will be mourning. Looks like the sun, it doesn't shine for me, because I'm living.
Greetings and welcome to the Time to Heal show. My name is Kandake and I'll be with you for the next hour and a half now, almost hour and a half. So just sharing love and blessings with you. And we'll be going into some reasoning a little later from now. Hope everyone is all right out there. Giving thanks and praises, acknowledging the divine world, acknowledging the ancestors.
Don't cross the nation. We are all Africans. Don't cross the nation. We are said to be Negroes, but nothing no go so. We are said to be Negroes, but nothing no go so. Don't cross the nation. We are all Africans. Don't cross the nation. Is right, but you're the ones that get a blowing light. Even the ones that straighten their heel find their brother to make a feel. Don't cross the nation. Don't cross the nation. We are all Africans.
Yes, blessed love, listening to the one called Little Rye. So I'm with you tonight. My name is Kandake and we will be continuing from last week, our last strong, you know, we were dealing with the culture and we had the cultural ambassador Ras Hapa here speaking about the drums and the origins of the drums and how the drums affects us and the part that the drum has played in the history of our people, you know. But we also started reasoning, and one of the reasonings that we began to start, which we started last week and we're going to continue this week, is on the mind. And this is the Time to Heal show. And we will be looking at all aspects of the human being, you know. And last week we spoke about the mind. What is the mind and how does the mind work? So we will be continuing with that this week. We'll just have a little more music until such time.
Ooh, yeah. Upon the land. So why do the heathen rage and the people imagine such vain things while we singing? Yeah. The Lord is our shepherd, I'll not want. He maketh I to lie down in green pasture. The greenest herb trees, with the brownest color weed, yes, with the brownest color weed. Ooh,
my shepherd, I'll not want. He maketh I to lie down in green pastures with the greenest herb trees. He anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over, runneth over. Yes, with overflowing. Can you get, yeah, yeah, it's overflowing.
Yes, cup runneth over and overflowing. Okay, so time to heal. Time to heal show. You know, one of the things that I always say, especially, you know, we use the name instrumental health because your health is instrumental. And, you know, one of the things we also really like to say is that health is about the whole human being. It's holistic. And so the approach that we've been having to health, we want to change the perspective. We want to change the outlook, but we change the outlook towards solutions. It's no use acknowledging something and then we don't have any solutions. And sometimes the solutions take a while to get to, but one needs to be on the road of solutions because we want to build our race, we want to build our people, we want to build the human being, you know. So tonight's show we're going to look at the mind, because many of us, I mean, well, all of us have a mind. I know sometimes, you know, back home we say, I no mind, you know, when somebody just do something and you just think, boy, you know, they don't even think about what they're doing, you know. Them have no mind. But we all have a mind. But one of the things I always start off by asking, well, all right, we all have a mind. You know, what is the mind? What makes up the mind? You know. So that's the question I'm going to pose, you know. You can call in if you want to share. But you can also, I want you to think about it because many times we travel this earth, we traverse this earth, and the vehicle in which we inhabit, we know little about. But not just the vehicle, but how we inhabit this vehicle and traverse this time and space called earth. We don't take time to look at the fundamentals, and the fundamentals are key. 079-444-31366. If you want to interact, you can call that number 094-443-1366. And the question I'm posing is, what is the mind? We started this from last strong. We started sharing, well, what is the mind, you know? Because if the mind is the driver of the vehicle that we find ourselves in, what is the mind? What makes up the mind? Is the mind physical or is the mind non-physical? What makes up the mind? If you look at the components that make up the mind, we are talking about a non-physical aspect of the self. Non-physical. And last week we touched a bit on, you know, what the mind constitutes, what constitutes the mind, what makes up the mind. And we understand that things like your thoughts, which are entities, which are energies, which carry force with them, your thoughts are one of the things that make up the mind. Another thing that makes up the mind is your memory, those memories that you carried from when you first could recall, those memories that you have, they make up the mind, because those memories can sometimes, more time, serve to inform your now. Many people, they act out things that they learned from maybe them when they were a child or when they were teenagers. Not necessarily that the way they're acting actually fits where they are now in life, but because it's become a habit, the memory of it, they act it out, you know. So your memory is one of those things that makes up the mind. Imagination, you know, if you're an artist, you may use your imagination, you know. You want to write a song, you want to write a book, you use your imagination. Although in the tradition, one of the things that they tell us, you know, when they teach in the Kemetic tradition. So when I talk about in the tradition, this is the Kemetic tradition, which comes out of the Nile Valley civilization that found its way across the Sahara Desert into West Africa. And we have many tribes in West Africa that still trace their lineage back to West African civilization. But the one specifically I'm talking about is the Dogomba people, the Dogons. And when it comes to the mind, and we're just speaking about imagination, you know, they teach us that, well, what the human does, the human being brain, we don't really invent, we just copy. So when you're imagining things, it really is things that you've kind of been exposed to, but maybe you're taking it onto another level. But that's imagination. That's another part in the mind that makes up the mind. What else makes up the mind? When you want to plan something, if you're, you know, planning next week, next month, you're planning to design something, you're planning something, all of these things happen in that non-physical space, what they call the mind. And I gave the example last week, or last strong, if you think about a nice, juicy mango or whatever fruit that you like, and I ask you to envisage that fruit, you know, and sometimes the mouth can start, you know, saliva can start coming to the mouth, and you know, you're almost tasting that fruit. But if I was to take a scalpel and try and open the brain, that physical part of you, would I see that image of the mango? And the answer is no. No, we wouldn't see the image of the mango, because you saw that image in your mind's eye. So these are some of the things that make up the mind, and the mind really relates to that non-physical aspect of the self, of you. But then if we then say, well, what is the mind? Then there is another aspect then, because if that's the non-physical, we know we're in a physical reality. We are in a physical reality. So how does that relate to us in this physical realm? And what we want to do is to get down to some practical things, you know. Well, we have the physical aspect which the mind interacts with, and we know that as the brain, the master controller. And the brain is the head of the nervous system. The nervous system is one of the 11 systems that this organism that we call a body, it's one of the 11 systems that make up this body. It's the one that controls movement. It's the one that sends messages to the body, and messages come from the body using the same nervous system, you know. So the brain is that physical part of the human being that interacts with the mind. And you can maybe look at a copy of that in terms of the computer. You have the hard part of the computer, and then you have the software. So the hard part could be the brain, and the software is what you program the computer with, which is the mind. What's the difference between the two? One is a non-physical aspect of self, and one is the physical aspect of self. But the two, that's the point where the two of them react, they interplay. The non-physical world and the physical world come together at that point. Now, although the brain is in the body, you know, and the body, you will call it a matter, right? We also have to remember that, you know, this creation that we live in is an amazing place. Wonders happen around us every day. You know, we have to give thanks for the magic of creation, the wonders of nature. Now, we are in a physical body, and when we all go to school, they teach us that physical, if you're talking about anything that's physical in the material realm, it's solid, liquid, and gas. That makes up the material realm that we find ourselves in this world. But the brain, the drive of the brain, what runs the brain, it's electricity. Now, electrons, electrons, these do not belong to the realm of matter, because it's not a solid, they're not liquid, and they're not gas. So even in what you call science today, modern science today, the most modern scientists can refer to electrons, electricity, that electric side of things, is that they call it energy. They simply call it energy. They can't classify it as matter. It's not necessarily non-physical, but what it is, it's that part that connects the non-physical to the physical realm. That energy force that can take the non-physical thought and transmute or change that message into an electrical impulse. It's the same message that came on the thought wave, because thoughts come in on a frequency. It's the same message that comes in on the thought wave that then is changed into a electromagnetic frequency, which then, and it's the same message that came from the thought to the nervous system, and then when it goes through the rest of the body, the message changes again, and there's another system called the endocrine system. And as we go through the weeks, we're going to talk a bit more about each system of the body. And the endocrine system is one that you talk about hormones. That's the system that deals with hormones, that is responsible for those hormones in your body. Estrogen, testosterone, luteinizing hormone, progesterone, estradiol, all of those hormones around reproductive systems, around children going through puberty, going through menopause, those you know, thyroid stimulating hormone, all of those. But that's the endocrine system, and there will be a week when we can speak to that system. But at the moment, we're talking about the mind and its interaction at the level of what we call the brain. Okay, so when we then talk about the mind and we talk about the brain, so we now have that non-physical aspect of the human being that begins to interact with the physical aspect, but through a medium that is not matter. This is the human being. It's a medium that is not matter, but it's the medium that takes the non-physical, the thoughts, the imaginations, the memories, and then changes those into, you can call it, transpose it from the non-physical into an energetic force, and then into what we call solid, liquid, or gas, into matter. Because when it goes to the endocrine system, which deals with hormones, then you've got something you can see. Then you've got something you can interact with at another level, which you call matter. And then that affects the human being's body. So we will look at things like stress and the biological pathway of stress from the thought right down to a physical disease, whether it be arthritis, whether it be cancer, whether it be some other inflammatory disorder, whether it be heart issues, whether it be diabetes. All of these can be linked to things like stress, which goes back to the thought and how you process, and how that biological pathway, that process, then acts on certain organs in the body. So we will be looking at that over the weeks. We're going to be looking a lot more at health, physical health, and the impact that thoughts, for example, we'll touch on some of that today. The impact that thoughts have on the human body and the human being, My name is Kandake. This is the Time to Heal show. For those who don't know me, I work in the community as a healer. I am also an initiate with the Dogon School of Kemetic Science. They are the Dogon people from West Africa. I also practice in a clinic. I also work in a clinic privately as a holistic consultant. I specialize in herbs specifically, so I have a degree in medical herbalism, and we use herbs specifically to deal with health issues, but also nutrition. So we cover nutrition as well, and we look at the whole human being. We look at lifestyle. So the approach is holistic. Before going into university over the last 10 years, I trod the hills with Rastafari in Jamaica and went to the school of Rastafari. I trod for 30 years, and I'm still learning from that school. In fact, I'm always learning, always willing to learn, because that is so important. Keeping an open mind. Because once you close that mind, once you close the mind, you close the door to new pathways. You close the door to new possibilities, So the mind, the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and to feel, that faculty of consciousness and thought. See? Now, so when we talk about the mind, then, if we're talking about mind and we're talking about time to heal, we're talking about health. So then, if we're talking about health, we're talking about mental health, yeah? Because we're talking about the mind, and that's within the mental plane. That's where the mind operates, on the plane, on the mental plane. So then, if we are talking about health and healing, then the question is then, what is mental health? What is mental health? What does that mean? What does that look like? I'm going to give the number out again, 079 444 313 What is mental health? Now, I know, because I've done many workshops here, that we have a definition of mental health that people seem to regurgitate time and time again. When you talk about mental health and what is mental health, immediately people begin to speak of mental illness, not being well, having to take drugs, So these are all the images, these are all the thoughts that come up, these are all the definitions that come up. But if I said to you then, okay, well, what is physical health? So I asked, what is mental health? And most people say, okay, well, you know, it's when you're not well, it's when you know, when you're sick, you know, you need medication, you know, you're not well mentally. Then if I ask you what's physical health, would you say, oh, it's when you're not well in the body, when you're not feeling? No, you wouldn't. You understand that physical health means just that, your state of physical health. It's the same with the mental health. It simply means the state of your mental health. It's not good and it's not bad. It's simply stating the state of your mental health. But over here, when we talk about mental health, it's already a negative. Now, that's funny, that's strange to me, because the powers that be are fully aware of what mental health is, and they have defined what mental health is. So if we, for example, were supposed to take the definition that's given by the highest body on the planet, so let's say within the system, we're going to go within the system now. So the highest body on this planet that deals with health is World Health Organization, right? All countries that subscribe to the United Nations have to come under organizations like UNESCO, the World Health Organization, NATO, those kind of organizations, they come on top because you're part of the United Nations. So the World Health Organization, they have a definition for mental health, and this is the body that sits over all these countries, that the UK is one of them, and they have a very clear definition. The definition of mental health, and this definition was given initially in the 60s, when they all came together, all these heads of health and so forth. They wanted to define, well, what is mental health? And this is the definition they gave. Mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Rewind. Mental health means what? Now, I know growing up, mental health just meant somebody who's mad, somebody who has health issues. But now I'm hearing a definition, and this is a definition that is stated by the World Health Organization, which every country subscribes to and are fully aware of. Now, how many of you were aware that this is what mental health means? I'm going to repeat it. Mental health, as defined by the World Health Organization. Mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Now, if this and since this is the definition that is given for mental health, I'd want to break this down a bit. Now, if the first part says mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, my question is, how many of us feel we have realized our potential? Because you see, that is one of the first things that they give as a prerequisite for mental health. So hold on, rewind here. Realizing your potential is part of your mental well-being. How many of us are realizing our potential? How many of us, first of all, you have the potential, but to realize it, how many of us get a chance to really do that? You know, sometimes we have the potential, but sometimes we have to settle for whatever because we have to pay bills, or maybe as a youth we had potential, but there was not sufficient persons there to help to support that potential. Maybe those who were around you, instead of helping to support you and your potential, what they tried to do was to pull you down. Maybe going to school, remember, you know, I have a very close friend, and I remember when we were going to school, that was some years ago, you know. Big woman, no. But when we were going to school, and those of us who are of a certain age probably even know how maybe if you had something similar, you used to have a careers officer who used to have to go and see, and the careers officer would guide you into what you would do in the future. Now, at school we were in so in that time it was 5th year, so you're about 15, 14, 15, so you're now looking at the career that you're gonna have. And I remember my friend saying, oh, you know, she wanted to be now it wasn't a teacher she said she wanted to be at the time, but she wanted to do something that, you know, would possibly take her into college and university. And her careers officer said to her, oh no, you don't want to bother with that. What you need to do is to go into hairdressing. And so that's exactly what she did. She went into hairdressing, and for many years she worked as a hairdresser, but she hated it. That was not what she really wanted to do. She hated being a hairdresser, and after a few years she left, and I think she did some chef work. But then it was after that she was speaking to another woman. This time it was a black woman. Unfortunately, the advisor was a European woman, was a white woman. And she was talking and saying, you know, I want to do something else with my life. I'm thinking about possibly studying and so forth. And the woman said to her, it was a black woman, she said, why don't you think about teaching? And she said, she looked at the woman and said, me, a teacher? Do you think I could teach? And she said, why not? You want to study? Why don't you study and look at teaching? The initial encounter that she had with the careers officer had so damaged her self-esteem, had so colored the way she looked at herself, that she did not believe, or she didn't think, because at the time, at that crucial time where she needed that support and encouragement to further her vision in life, somebody came along and muted her, damped her down. So this was her potential, which is one of the prerequisites for mental health. Her potential now was being skewered. It was being dampened down. But this other woman along the way gave her the nudge and said, go for it. And she went on to do her degree, passed, and went on to teach. She is now a head teacher. Someone who was told she needs to go and be a hairdresser, she is now a head teacher. But how many of us achieve our full potential? That is my question. If we're talking about mental health, and that is one of the first prerequisites for mental health, So if you're not achieving your potential, you are in a time and space where the responsibility is on you to allow yourself, give yourself that space and time. And if at the moment you are not where you should be or need to be to achieve what it is you set out to do, look at what it is that you need. Sometimes we don't have everything that we need. So what do you need? Get logical about it. Don't get emotional. Get logical. What do I need to accomplish this? What do I need to achieve that? Then, once you know what you need to do, you have to take the necessary steps to keep going and to keep doing it. Because sometimes perseverance, well, it's not sometimes. When you want to do something that is going to benefit you, you need to have perseverance. You need to keep going. You need to say, okay, this is what I need to do. You need to keep going. You need to, anything worth having, you're going to find that there's going to be sacrifices, there's going to be challenges that comes, because that's what builds you. That's what builds the strength, that inner strength. Okay, so we're talking about World Health Organization's definition of mental health. So realizing the individual, realizing your potential, that's key. The next aspect says can cope with normal stresses of life. Now, in this cities that we live in, we're so far removed from what we call the natural world that we are caught up in, as Bob called it, the rat race. So we're caught up in what is our neighbor doing, what is expected of us, how should we be dressing, what kind of hairstyle should we have, what area should we be living, what car should we be driving, what kind of job should we be doing. Not because it suits you, the individual, but because actually there's something associated with that. If you drive a particular car, you're looked on a particular way. This false impression that people have to give every day. You get up and out there, and you're putting on an act. You're buying your car not necessarily because you like it. You buy the car because say, yeah man, enough people are gonna look upon you, this car, it look good, or I want to live in this area because that and I know someone who they wanted to live in it was like West Hampstead, in Hampstead, because that was the area to live in. And I remember they got the choice of the council was going to give them a flat many years ago, and there was a lovely 2-bedroom flat in a local area, North London, lovely 2-bedroom flat, and they turned it down because they wanted a postcode. And they ended up getting a 2-bedroom, but it was in like almost like a house, a large house, and they've had different partition. It wasn't really a house, it was like a block, but it wasn't a very nice block. The block didn't look very good. The people living in the block were, let's say, had a lot to be desired. Let's put it that way. They had a lot to be desired. The place wasn't even clean, but they preferred to go and live in that place because when they sent their address out, it could say Northwest 6. It could say Northwest, and when you asked them where they live, West Hampstead, even though they were living in a dump. Now, these are the kind of things that people do to themselves just because they want to fit in with what is expected, or they want to seem like something that they're not. Those and many other things are stressors that people have on their lives because it's not natural. Normally people want the things that's going to make them happy, but really what people are doing when they do that, they're doing the things that they think other people will how they think other people will look at them, and they make the decision based on that, not based on their own reality. Coping with the stresses of life, things like working 9 to 5, not being there for your children when you come home. So during the day, you're not there. You know, by the time you get home 6, 7 in the evening, you can't even get time to cook for your children. So your children have to, you know, maybe be eating takeaway or, you know, such like. They can become stressors down the road because your child grows up with you being absent. When you're no longer absent, when you're no longer there, to support your child, you know, they find friendship, they find company elsewhere outside the house, and many times these friendships that they develop can be let's say not beneficial for them. That causes stresses down the road. You know, you will have to pay your mortgage, you have to pay your rent. These are what they call the normal stresses of life, but they say it's normal, but we're in a very abnormal setting. We are literally in it, you know, like you see the rats running in a cage and they have them on this wheel and they're treading. That's how we are as human beings. Because if you think about it, by the time you've gone through school from 5 years old to maybe 18, 16, 18, you've done at least 10 years, 12 years. Then you do maybe another 4, 5 years. So I don't know, 15 years, 16 years. You go to school for 16 years so that for the next 40, 50 years, you can give somebody else the best years of your life. You really came on this planet to school for 10, 15 years so that someone can program you to go and work for someone else for the next 30, 40 years. That's why you came here on earth. So this is why I'm saying the settings that we are in is a very restrictive and artificial setting, because we're programmed, especially in the West, that we come by the age of 5, you're on the treadmill. You're already on the treadmill because you've gone into the system, and the system teaches you that at the end of 16 or 18, your exams, you get good exam results so you can get a job. You get a job that doesn't please you necessarily. Most people go to work and they hate it. They hate going to the 9 to 5. That is stress. That is stress. Every morning you wake up knowing you've got to go into that office with them false people, with them false smile. None of them not like you, but you have to go in there every day and you have to be interacting with them. Why? Because you've got to pay your rent, you've got to pay your mortgage, you know, you need to put food on the table. Maybe your partner isn't there, the children's father isn't there if you're a woman, so you've got to be doing that. If you're a brother, you know, you might have to be looking after your family, but you've got to do that. Now you're giving the best years of your life, but you're giving it in a stressed situation. These have real physiological impact on your well-being, and over the weeks, maybe next week, we can touch on that. There's a whole field of science called psychoneuroimmunology, which looks at the biological pathways of stress. It looks at from the time you think something to when that enters your body through the senses, and then that message is carried down through, we spoke about earlier, the endocrine system, to where it goes. There's a place which is on top of your kidneys called the adrenal glands, which release adrenaline and cortisol, and then the effect that those have on your body. We will talk about that in more depth. But the reality is, every single time you are stressed, without exception, whether you are aware of it or not, your body has to make significant adjustment to deal with the stresses that you are under. And remember, Remember we spoke about the mind, and one of the aspects that makes up the mind is also your memories. So you may be having to deal with the stress of going into work. That's just one stress. You might have your mother that's ill, and you might have to be her carer. You might have to be looking after her, over a long period of time. You might be having issues with your children. You may be having issues with other members of the family. So work is just one stress factor. Every single time you are stressed, there is a physiological reaction to that stress. And that's why we know we can associate stress with things like cancer, with things like gastrointestinal disorders, whether it's diverticulitis or IBS or so forth, with things like heavier menstrual cycle, heavier menstrual pain, with things like arthritis, with things like multiple sclerosis, with things like autoimmune diseases. These are very real diseases that are impacted on because of stress, and especially what we call chronic stress. So although we're talking about in this definition being able to cope with the normal stresses of life, where we find ourselves in these cities, there isn't really anything normal about it. You come out of your door in the morning, you don't even say hi to your next door neighbor. You look to the right, you don't say hi to your next. Some people do, I do, but most of us in big cities, we don't. We get on the bus, we get on the tube, back home, good morning Miss Matty, good morning sir, good morning Junie, good morning. At least you would have had some human interaction. When you're living in the city, from the time you step out the door, you've got your mask on and you're out into the world, so it's the human being acts differently in this setup here that we call cities. Okay, let's look at the last part of this definition of mental health. So all of this has to do with mental health, so I hope you're following me. Because we're saying that mental health, this is the definition of mental health. So for you to be mentally healthy, you have to be coping with all of this, okay? All right, this is the definition. And so you can cope with the normal stresses of life, and you can work productively and fruitfully. Well, they certainly do get their pound of flesh out of you. They get their product out of you. Productivity, how fruitful it is to you, because fruitful doesn't have to just mean what you get paid at the end of the day. Are you getting job satisfaction? Are you happy with the work that you're doing? Are you feel satisfied that you've given as a human being, and whatever it is that you have to give? Because maybe your potential is in another area of life, but because you got to meet the bills, you have to be doing this. So you're not really growing on your potential as a human being. That affects your well-being. This is what we're talking about. These things affect your well-being. And the last part, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. How many of us are out there making a contribution to our community? Because it's each one teach one, and making a contribution to your community doesn't mean you have to come out and give alms to the whole to the whole road and to the whole area. It doesn't mean that. It might mean, for example, that your next door neighbor, they're elderly, and you don't really see any family going to see them much. You might want to pop in and see how they are, if they'd like, maybe make some tea for them, or just give them 5 minutes or so. There's elderly people out there, the orphans and the elderly. That's one of the things that the Most High said to always look out for, because those people need people. So contributing in your community, you can do that in many ways. We're gonna take a little musical break right here before we come back on the other side.
Some say time's so good, while others say it's so tough. One man sitting in his easy chair, and while he keeps works and he gets no pay. And so he keeps on praying. Time is so tough. Stop this situation. Won't you please give an helping hand? Stop this situation. Won't you please give an helping hand? One man sitting in his easy chair while he keep on singing. Time is so good. Another man works and he gets no pay. And so he keeps on praying. Time is so tough. Some say time's so good, while others say it's so tough. Say time really tough. Oh, it's tough. Yeah. We don't want you to share. All we need you to be fair, yeah, and give an helping hand. We don't want you to share. All we need you to be fair and give an helping hand. Yes, one man sitting in his easy chair while he keep on singing. Time is so good. Say he's a capitalist. Another man works and he gets no pay. And so he keeps on praying. Time is so tough. Oh, say time's so tough, while others say it's so good. Oh, time really tough. It's not good as it should. Oh, time's so tough, while others say it's so.
Yeah, it's a time so tough, you know. We have a caller calling in, and I know we are due to have our brother calling in from the our brother calling in from the Earth Center. I will just finish introducing you from the Earth Center, and these are the people from West Africa, the Dogomba people, and we were just sharing with our listeners Wahibta. I was just giving a definition just so that we can just get people in to understand about the mind and the part that the brain plays with the mind. And I was given the definition, the World Health Organization's definition of mental health, and which is quite different from what we see as mental health here, because usually when we talk about mental health here in Europe or in the West, it's usually something negative. Mental health just means actually madness, but actually mental health just means the state of your mental health. And so we were looking at an individual realizing their own potential, coping with the normal stresses of life, being able to work fruitfully and productively, and to contribute to their community. But we also have the aspect of tradition, and many of us don't even really understand or really appreciate the foundation of that you get from tradition in terms of a sound and healthy mind. How our ancestors really looked at the world and gave us a good strong foundation to really start from. So I want to introduce, like I said, our brother from the Earth Center, That's Wahipta Fakara, and he's going to be sharing with us some information from the Earth Center and sharing the wisdom of the ancients through the Earth Center. So, my brother Wahipta, welcome to the Time to Heal show on Bless FM.
Thank you, for giving this podium to share our ancestral knowledge. So it's a privilege to be on your show.
Thank you. You know, the mind, my brother, the mind, you know, some people, you know, we're in a mindless world right now. Some of the things that are happening are really mindless. It's like there isn't a human being behind that face. You know, they're not thinking. What can the tradition bring to 2018? What can people living in the West, having a Western lifestyle, what really can the tradition assist us with in understanding our mind, being, you know, stronger mentally? Is there anything that the tradition can really offer our people in this time?
Yes. Thank you for your question. Yes, the tradition has a lot to offer because they've, you know, been longer, much longer than the modern societies. The modern society is like 200 years old, but tradition been much longer for thousands of years. So many aspects of ourselves they've already dealt with, they've mastered it. It's just nowadays people have kind of digressed and stood away from nature, and we've become, you know, even stranger to this planet, stranger to nature. So, you know, people are really lost, and it's now our ancestral wisdom is very relevant in bringing us back to our ancestral goal, and that's really to evolve the human being, you know, to make the human being use all their aspect of themselves. So the mind is one of a very interesting field, looking after the mind and the brain at the same time. So in the tradition, we can see. Let's first clarify. When you talk about like mental health and craziness, in the tradition, somebody who's crazy is considered somebody who's not able to control their emotion. That's a crazy person.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else like mental illness, if the mind is sick, that's a sickness. That sickness can be, you know, treated. That sickness can be cured.
So before you go on, because I think that's interesting. So what you're saying is, if someone has frequent emotional outbursts, that person is seen as a crazy person in the tradition.
Yes, somebody who is not able to control their emotion.
They can't control their emotions.
Because if you can't control your emotion, you know, your action, people don't know what you're going to do. What you're going to do, you know, may cause harm to other people, and you're not able to stop. You're not able to control that emotion. That's craziness.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I get that, because, yeah, exactly. If your emotions take you over, you know, you do something, says, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. That time it's too late. You've caused the damage already. So that makes sense. Thank you, my brother. Yes, please continue.
Yeah. So, and I know nowadays we see people their brain can be functioning well. The brain physically can be functioning, but people can still have mental problem, while the brain, is functioning well. So that means uh, the mind is something quite different. It's quite away. It's different from the brain. But our mind has to have some reference, and the reference is nature. It's our surrounding. It takes its reference, all our imagination, wherever we can, we think that our mind can reach. It has to have its reference in nature. Now, if our reference in nature is not properly presented, or is not really losing its reference to nature, to the material world, then our mind has no stable place to stand on, and we will start having many issues. And to a human being, there is other aspect of ourselves that affect the mind, other spiritual things that affects the mind too. So when we are looking in dealing with the mind, we have to look at have a holistic approach in dealing with such an issue. So where do you want to start?
Yeah. Yeah, again, the fact that you start with you say that the human mind needs a reference point, which is the nature. And we just made reference to these cities, because when you take the human being away from nature, we don't even walk on the earth anymore. We're just walking on concrete. You're walking on concrete. You can't even get to see. I mean, we've had a few sunny days recently, which is good. Generally here, you don't get to see the sun. At night, you can't see the stars, because, even if the sky is clear, the lights that are here, it affects your visibility. The buildings that you're around, these concrete buildings all the time, that we know raises the temperature at least another degree here in the cities. We're talking about how people just pass each other on the road. That, you pass your neighbor and you don't say good morning to your neighbor. Back home, you would never do that. You lose that interaction, not just with the nature, but with the humanity. So that's interest. But yes, my brother, please continue. So the role,
and that reference, the way we kind of see nature or reference our surrounding, our environment. One thing is like the language, because we use the language to reference our surrounding. Now, we need to kind of also, pay a little close attention to the modern language that we use. I mean, we are here in UK. We're using one of the Romance language, or one of the Indo-European languages, and these languages, it cannot distort the reality, or it has what we call it, like conflicts in the concept, in the logic, and the way it kind of reference our surrounding is away from nature. It's away from reality. So, for example, I mean, the most common thing that we kind of function around is like time. The way even we look at time, I know time has just become something that the system used to say, okay, it's time to wake up, it's time to go to work. It's a social. It become a kind of a social thing. But time is a very spiritual thing. it's very important for us to orientate ourselves in in orientate ourselves on our own planet. So time is very, very important. The way even we look at it, but the way it kind of presented to us by the modern education system is just something that we don't need to pay attention to. It's just something that we use to manage social movement, social management, but a very important spiritual aspect to it. But that also tied down to the language, we use. So we wake up, let's say in the middle of the night, and we start saying, okay, a new day has started, 1 a.m. A new day has started, but something new or something just started in the middle of the night. That's already contradiction. The concept it doesn't make sense. It's contradicting, but we force that one on the brain. So when we force it on the brain is like forced to take it, but it kind of shrink the brain a little bit. Now, when it shrink the brain, like most of the language that we use, when there's contradiction in it, is forced on the brain. Now, the brain kind of shut some of the faculties that, because you're not using it, or certain pathways in the brain, the blood is not flowing there. So that kind of shut down. And we need all those pathways to open up to access another, let's say, access the world of the mind. Because the mind is like another parallel world that, the brain kind of locked into. Now, for us to lock into that, we need our brain, all the pathways to be open and the blood to flow there. But the language we use is very limited. The language we use has only 26 alphabet, 44 sound. That's not enough. That's not enough to describe our reality. That's not enough to expose other secret that our ancestors already discovered about this world. So our brain that's kind of limit our brain. So our brain cannot now tap into the world of the mind. So it just it's very, 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 very limited. So that's another problem. And you can see that nowadays people want to experience more. People want to try to. They know that there's something more to this world than what is presented to us. So they go and try different things. I know people go try things like ayahuasca or whatever, those spiritual medicine, to try to reach out more, try to expand more. But this is like a shortcut, trying to force, the brain to open up to tap into the bigger, world of the mind, and that itself is a problem because there's a way to get there without using those medicine. When you use medicine in such a way, or medicine is for sickness. Now, if we use those medicine really to treat, people have like mental problem. But if you want to expand the brain to be able to tap into the mind, to expand the mind, there is the way. There is a initiation. In initiation, we teach. Those are steps that you take to understand, to prepare you to really understand this world, to prepare you to expand the brain, to open up the brain, and really tap into the world of the mind, and really have the wisdom, the intelligence, um, the knowledge to really deal with the challenges of of life, of existence. Um, so yeah, that's the problem now. Yeah, we are facing, and our ancestral ways, our ancestral knowledge is there to assist us. They've been through, through this, and we can see their legacy, what they've, some of the things that they built a long time ago. For us now, when we go look back into antiquity, we wonder who did this. Were there, even speculating that, oh, maybe it's aliens, because a human being is too much. We can't imagine a human being doing those things or building those pyramids, or some of the older things in antiquity that we discover as is still here up to today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that shows that we have degenerated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have degenerated, and um, the ancestral ways here is very, very relevant today. It's very, very relevant to assist us to grow.
Mm-hmm. And I know usually in the traditions, and I've seen it even when I was in Gambia a few years ago. The children had gone into the bush for initiation, and they had been cut, circumcised, and brought out. And there was a big ceremony up in the village of dancing, and then you see the families coming to. Oh, it was just such a wonderful thing. But it's not just something to witness and think, oh, it's a wonderful thing. It's actually part of the culture, and it's actually part of the child's orientation in life, isn't it? The whole initiation.
Yeah, the initiation is really to prepare you for this life.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you arrive into this world, there's many things that you came with. I mean, we don't just appear out of nowhere. We said existence is full. There is no empty space. For you to be here, that means you were somewhere before. So if you were somewhere before, where did you come from? I mean, this is a very old question that is very relevant today. I mean, people are still asking, where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? So initiation really is to equip you with those knowledge, with those answers, so you can face the world, you can face the reality. So the initiation really start searching, going back and saying, okay, where did you come from? What did you come with? What are the faculty? What are the gifts? What are the skills you came with?
Mm-hmm. Your potentials.
And then the training is to tune you, to prepare you, to equip you with what, to really use those gifts you came with to benefit the society. So that's very, very important. And I say today, especially for our people, the diasporas, looking at our history, those who either their ancestors were brought here by force, those who they find themselves. We are here now. We take our children, or we've been educated by a system that really don't have the best interest of a human being at hand. I mean, the goal of the education is really to prepare you, is to give you skill for a job. Nothing to do with managing life. Nothing to do with looking at existing, the world, or answer some of those fundamental questions. It's really basically to equip you with really instruct you to do a job. So we have initiation really is for life, is to really educate you to deal with life. And that's so important, because you can, get all the skills you need to do a job. Um, yeah, you get a skill, you get a good job, but who is taking care of you? You doing you're there, doing whatever 9 to 5, doing business, whatever artist. But what about you? You need to do something for you, because like if you're talking in terms of investment, you're like the biggest asset that need to be invested in. Yeah, so for you to really perform better in this life. So initiation, for us, especially the diaspora here, and the black people, the initiation here is really to equip you to be super intelligent. With intelligent, everybody respect intelligent. Even whoever consider you to be enemy will respect you like somebody who is intelligent, because you can solve problems. Everybody have problems. With intelligence, you solve. Everybody will need you to solve problems, whether it likes you or doesn't like you. Now, to be intelligent, really, is really what you've really been exposed to. To have a functionality that is useful for life. Now, for you to be super intelligent or above average, for us, using just the 44 sound, in English language, 26 alphabet, that's not enough. We came with a brain to build pyramids. And with this, mother language, it's not enough to do that. Our brain is just shrunk. You can get a degree or, whatever professional qualification in accountancy. You think that's good enough. But you've got a brain that is capable of doing much, much more. And for that brain to fully function, you need, to go back to our original language of humanity. That's Medu. Medu has already over 400 sound characters with, those are sonograms, and about over 350 ideogram. What kind of brain, just to use those, those characters. Can you imagine what kind of brain, your brain has to expand to accommodate all those characters? Now, how many ideas can you develop from that? How many concepts is there in that language? It's much, much more compared to 44 sound. So let's not fool ourselves thinking that these modern languages is able to really free us, is able to allow us to tap into our full abilities, our full potential. Our ancestors were, so great. They did a lot. And some of the things they did that we can, imagine. So for us to reclaim those things, we say they're ancient, but we're carrying those things in our blood. For us to tap into those, we need much more than 44 sound. We need to take our initiation more seriously. 44 sound is not enough. There are many things that is open to us for us to really fully access and reclaim those ancient vows, those ancient skills, those ancient abilities, those ancient powers, rather than moving in life, guessing, being a victim of circumstance, consequence of many things. So we cannot carry on, going in life like that. There is a proverb that was given when I was in America a couple of weeks ago. I was there for two months.
Okay, so for the listeners who don't know what Meritar is, that's Africa. That's what we call Meritar. Okay, I know you just recently got back about a week now, right?
Yes.
Where were you staying? Which countries were you in?
I was in Burkina Faso and Togo. So we were moving, because those the temples, we don't care about these imaginary borders. So we go wherever the temples are, where those knowledge keepers are. So in those temples, we go to learn, really. We go to learn direct from the ancestor, especially in the ancestral call. The ancestors come and give us knowledge and teach us. So one of the proverb they give normally is to really it's a lesson for us. It's and kind of reveal our situation and give us some guidance. So they're very, very dear to us. They're very important to us. So generally, say our problem is like someone sitting next to a riverbank. Someone sitting next to a riverbank trying to wash their hand with their spit or with their saliva. There's a water flowing there. You don't want to reach out to grab the water, but you want to spit or in your hand and then wash with it. How long are you going to be doing that? That's really foolishness. We have a big river of knowledge, of many tools to really equip us. The tool that's available is available. It's not ancient. It's not ancient, knowledge. It's not ancient things. It's here. It's accessible. So why are we struggling, relying on whatever they've given us to educate our children? Why are we relying on that limited? I mean, it's okay to learn. I mean, I'm not stopping anybody or discouraging anybody to go and learn, but you can go and learn whatever you want to learn. But don't forget your own. You might hold your own, first master yours, and then go and learn whatever other people learn. That's just a bonus. But if you leave your own, and so you want to rely on somebody else, that's like riding on somebody's back. When you're riding on somebody's back, well, when that person start running crazy and running toward a cliff, don't complain. Because if you start complaining, you say, yeah, well, you're riding on my back. You depend on me. For your education, you're riding on my back. You depend on me. For your food, you depend on me. For your religion, you depend on me. Even your clothes, yeah. You're depending on me. You're riding on my back. So don't complain. You say, oh, you're running toward the cliff. There's a danger there. No. All you can do, get off and pick up what your ancestors, your inheritance. Grab it and hold it with your hand. Hold it strong. And that's what we can do. So there's nobody really stopping anyone from, learning your ancestral ways. There's nobody stopping you. No police will say, no, don't learn that.
So if people do want to learn, though, because you're bringing certain knowledge, but if people do want to learn this ancestral knowledge, because you yourself one day didn't have the knowledge and you went through the schooling, the initiation to learn, right?
Yes.
So if someone who's listening wanted to know more about the ancestral knowledge, or they wanted to, come and sit in or come and be a part of or learn the knowledge from the ancestors directly, how would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, we opened a school in London, in Birmingham. Actually, the next 2 weeks is still open for people to come and sit in the class. You can come, sit in the class. If you decide to stay, yeah, you stay. If you decide, okay, I've sat in enough, ready yet, then that's fine. But it's a big opportunity. We really, you get a chance to see how far we've really fallen as human being. Really, we have fallen so far, and so some of the things, it will really, surprise you. Like, wow, I didn't know we have this. So this is an invitation to come in. The 2 weeks is often free. You can come, attend like this 2 weeks, and check it out. Yeah, we're here in Leighton. There's a class every Sunday from 10 o'clock in Leighton. Yeah, the number you can call, to let us know you're coming is 0207 195 4144. That's 4144. So yeah, feel free, call. You're welcome, and check it out. Yeah, I mean, also opportunity to travel to Merita, because in Merita there, in Africa, we even bought land for people to go. And
so these are the temples, right? The Dogon temples. I know they also have a healing village. They have
yes.
land. Yes, can you just come back? So you tell us a little bit about what's happening back home.
Yeah, we bought a land in Togo, things over 2,000 hectares, really for people who want to visit. It's a healing village. It's really in nature. Everything that, even all the herbs, the medicine that we need, it just grow there. We don't have to go far to look for it. Anybody like need this, okay, there's a herb there, there's one there, speak it, mix it, like the herbs that you need. Yeah, it's just around. And we also recently bought another land in Burkina Faso, toward the Dosso land.
You said the Dosso land. Just give us a little information on who the Dosso are.
Yeah, the Dosso, a group of hunters. They do the initiation for hunters. Hunters are really good or specialize in working with herbs, because hunters really go do a lot of healing to the animals, healing to even other plants, and healing to humans. So you're gonna learn, a lot about the nature, the animals, how to take care of them, how to recognize them, communicate with them. So they do that initiation, and that's available, part of the Earth Center, initiation. But the school that we opened in London is really to prepare us. It's really to give us a new lens and remove the old, like colonial or Western mindset, and give you a new lens to how to look at nature, how to fit in nature. So it can prepare you. And when you go to Merita, those places, you have to think all the time. Really, that's going to be a very big challenge for somebody, who's been here and so used to here, because here you don't really have to think all the time, because everything is set. You want to cross the road, you just look at the lights. It tells you, oh, cross. or you want to do this, everything kind of set. There's direction, there's marking. So our mind is not used to working that hard. There's too many buttons that we press. It doesn't take a lot of, brain power to press a button. We are too much used to pressing button, press this, press that, and we think that we are thinking, but that brain is not working.
That's right.
So in Merita, that's going to be challenged. So the class here we have, in London and Birmingham, it's really to prepare you, to equip you with some new concepts that you never heard before, never questioned before. So it gives you that initial preparation, because initiation is about experience. Now the practical aspect of it, when you go to to the villages, to those temples, and then see the practical aspect of things. That's what initiation about is. About experience. You need to experience it. Things that you learn in class, you're going to see it. You're going to experience it. Yeah, and I've been there. I got also a chance to really work on my immune system. I got some herbs to strengthen my immune system. Took herbs to remove the plastic residue that's been building, because here we eat a lot of plastic in our food. So the herbs there, it takes it pulls those. It work on the liver. Try to remove all the plastic from our bodies. For the stomach, over the years, you build whatever you're eating. It creates, wounds, in the stomach, but some of those wounds, you don't feel them. When you feel them, normally it's already too late. It's like a big problem already. But we take herbs to take care of that. So we, when we go there, we take care of ourselves physically and spiritually. We take, bath to really cleanse us, to cleanse other aspect of ourselves, that exists in a different, kind of a different existence than our, material world here. So there's many aspects of ourselves that we never even thought about, but it's there, and we get those time to clean them, we remove the blockages so that we can reconnect, with other aspects of ourselves that we don't know, other abilities that we have that we don't know. There's so many blockages that need to be cleaned. Those blockages need to be cleaned, especially when you've been here in places, especially the cities. The cities spiritually are very dirty. I mean, really dirty, and the dirt need to be cleaned off. Yeah, to maintain a healthy, for body, mind, and spirit.
Thank you, Wahibta. I'm really looking forward to going to Merita this year. I'm hoping that I can get to go to the pilgrimage down there this year, because I know we're celebrating is it the 10th anniversary of Nebnaba Lumusa Morondenebeg, who was the high priest that brought this knowledge from the temples in Burkina to the West.
Yes, we're going to be acknowledging and showing our respect for the sacrifice that Master Nebnaba did, to come from the bush to the West here and build a bridge and open that door of that knowledge, because that knowledge was only shared from father to son, mother to daughter, and it was not open to everybody. So they saw that the ancestors, the divinities, say it's time. Humanity needs that. It's time for them, to come back home.
So
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really to come back home, because long time ago, when the somehow people being taken into the boat, during the slavery. There are many spiritual things that they left behind, and they left them behind in the hope that one day their descendants will go back to reclaim them. I know there's many emotion writing on these. It's a painful history, but those ancestors, they were really powerful. Those are not weak. They were really powerful. They were so powerful that they even can turn the whole ship upside down. They stop the wind from moving. But because there was something they had to protect, there was something very important they had to protect. And that's why they had to agree to take that power and leave it on the land. They had to take that power, leave it on land, and hoping that, okay, one day our descendant will come back and reclaim that. And now the diaspora here, yeah, we prepared, back home to receive them, to go through the ritual to reclaim those things. But because we, been educated now by a system that's really were against us, we have fallen very far from the ancestral path. And we need to go through that, initiation. We need to raise our quality, because those ancestors, that quality were really high. The quality was so high, we have fallen so far. So initiation is like for us to gain those quality, build those quality. Until we reach those quality, then we are able to reclaim those ancestral or those ancient vows that they left for us, and pick up, the responsibility that they were doing, and then carry on with life. And those things that they had, if you're able to achieve them now and get them, yeah, you wouldn't be where where you
well advanced. I can
yeah, very, very, very
well
advanced.
advanced with the knowledge that
Yeah.
they have. Could you give us the number and the address of the place again, or at least the number, and if anyone wants to contact to come in and sit in? Because they said for the next 2 weeks, if people want to come and learn this ancient knowledge from the Dogon people, then they can sit in on classes for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the mobile number you can call is 07551 551 294, or the landline.
Could you just repeat that number again? The mobile.
The mobile is 07 551 551 294.
So 07551 551 294.
Yeah, just double checking.
No problem.
Yes, 07 551 551 294. And the landline to call, which is the best number to call, is 0207 sorry, 1 second.
No problem. You're
Let me
listening
get
to the Time to Heal show. We're coming to the end of the show now. We're just speaking with Wahib Tafakara from the Earth Center, and he's just going to give us some numbers for those who are interested to come in and just sit in for the next couple of weeks to hear a bit more about the ancient traditional knowledge from West Africa, which originated out of East Africa in the Nile Valley region, where you call Egypt. I think Wahibta now has the number that you can contact the Earth Center on.
Yes, the number is 020 7175 4144. I repeat, 0207 175 4144.
Okay.
And yeah, I've also got in Birmingham, also in Birmingham. Uh, yeah, so it's 0121
Okay. So that's the numbers for schools in London, in Birmingham. If you want to know more about the traditional knowledge, you know, it's deep and it's wide, you know. So if you want to come in and just sit in and really hear what this is about, you can call those numbers and you can speak with Wahibta and he will give you the address. Like he said, based in Leighton, or is it Leytonstone? Leytonstone?
Yeah, Leighton. Really.
Leighton.
Yeah, just
Okay.
Leighton here.
Based in Leighton. So, Wahibta, I want to thank you for calling in this evening and sharing your knowledge with us. Is there any last words you would like to impart on our listeners? Anything you'd like to leave them with?
Yes, I just want to, thank them for their ancestors. It's not by mistake, those who had the, opportunity to hear this. So it's the ancestor calling. It's time for us to rise. It's time for us to really, raise our level. So the ancestor is calling. So this is your chance to come and just listen. Try, we give you something to think about, just for you to think about. That's all. So thank you, and thank you to your ancestors.
Thank you for calling, Wahibta. May your ancestors in the divine world continue to guide you along your journey.
All right, thank you, sister.
Okay.
Here, here.
How you feeling, Mr. T? Come make a try with me. Is your heavens feeling high? Jaja is still inside
Time to heal.
to give us peace within. Out there to cleanse us from our sins. Out there, we'll never love another, because we'll keep on loving Jaja. Out there, I say we'll never be lonely. No, Mr. T, we'll always feeling happy. Yes, Mr. T, with our heavens feeling high. We know he's still inside. Walking to feel it, out there. We'll never love another, because we'll keep on loving Jaja. Out there, I say we'll never be lonely. No, Mr. T, we'll always feeling happy. Yes, Mr. T, with our heavens feeling high. We know he's still inside. Walking to feel it, out there. Walking to feel it, out there. Walking to feel it, out there.
time to heal. You know, our ancestors knew what was to come, and so they left the knowledge for us.
Oh, it was happening, but it's happening no more, yeah. It was happening, tribal war, yeah. We don't want no more Adam. No, no, no.
It's unity we're dealing with. We're talking about us as a people coming back together, and it's the knowledge of our ancestors. There is nothing here in the West that is going to give our souls what we need. It's only our ancestors that can provide that.
The morning, yeah, when I heard the people saying, yeah, God was saying, the gangsters sitting up and eating coffee. One by one, they take a little soap, saying the war is over, no more war, no more war. They now see themselves in unity, celebrating with better, calling no more war, no more war, no more war. Travel war, we don't want no more Adam. No, 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 no. Travel war. I know that we are living, and all we need is love, yeah, and a little harmony. Gangsters seated up and eating coffee. One by one, they take a little soap, saying the war is over. No more war, no more war. They now see themselves in unity, yeah, celebrating with better, calling no more war, no more war. Oh, no more war.
So I want to thank you for listening to the Time to Heal show. We'll be back next strong, where we'll be sharing more information on health, well-being, holistic health. We're going to look a bit closer now at when things happen, how it affects you. We're going to look a bit closely at dis-ease and how thoughts, the mind, how that impacts on you. So we're going to take it another step further. Thank you for listening to the Time to Heal show. Be with you again next strong. Blessings.
I don't know, but I see them creeping up for the blow. It won't be easy, to get that children out. It won't be easy, 'cause the forces are all about. Hear them sing and shout. Let us break their band asunder. Cast away their cause from us. Just shall have them in derision, surely. Surely that is hand on us. That surely.